I can start anytime now?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Walker Planning Commission meeting, December 2nd, 2020. We're going virtual this evening, and we'll try to follow the same order of business that we generally do if it's an in-person meeting. So the first item on the agenda was calling the meeting to order. Second is to review the minutes from the meeting of November 4, 2020. The commissioners have those minutes in the packet. First, are there any comments or questions on that?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Motion by Tyler.
I'll support that.
Supported by
Scott.
Scott?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Tyler, supported by Scott, to approve the minutes of the meeting from November 4, 2020. Tricia, are we going through a roll call vote on all the actions?
We will likely go through a roll call vote for the agenda item that
Okay.
we are voting on.
Okay, so we'll do a voice vote for the approval of the minutes for November 4. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. The minutes from November 4 have been approved. Next item on the agenda is general public comment. This is an opportunity to ask questions, share any concerns on non-agenda items. Now, the agenda we have this evening deals first with a self-storage discussion, informal land use discussion, and the other deals with the final site plan for the Kent County Road Commission facility on 4 Mile. So if you're taking in this meeting for any of those, for either of those two, there'll be opportunity later in the meeting for you to comment. But if there's anyone that has any general comments at this point in time, if you could raise your hand, and in this case, going to the participants tab and finding your name, and there's an opportunity to raise a virtual hand. And if someone wants to provide a comment in that fashion, Jason Rotman, our IT guru, will identify you and allow you to make comment. Jason, do you see anyone that's indicating a desire to speak for general comment?
I see one so far, Monica.
I just want to make sure, and because I just want to make sure that part of the agenda is talking about the former D&W site. Is that happening tonight?
That's happening this evening, correct?
Okay, then I don't need any comment.
Okay, thank you, Monica.
You're welcome.
Anyone else would like to talk?
I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay. Okay, there being none, we'll move into the agenda items. The first item on the agenda is, as I mentioned, informal land use discussion involving the property at 3410 Remembrance Road. It's a former D&W that's now Pagoda self-storage. And this item is a discussion item. There will be no action taken this evening. It's an opportunity for the developer of the property to describe a development plan for the property beyond the existing building. And this will be an opportunity for them to make their case for that or just describe it. But beforehand, we will look to staff to provide an introduction. In this case, Tricia Anderson is the planning director. And Tricia, if you could lead the discussion on this item, please.
Yeah, so we were approached by Mr. Steve Witte from Nederveld and Associates, who is representing the owner of the property at 3410 Remembrance Road Northwest. Currently, that site is occupied by an interior self-storage facility. It was redeveloped back in 2017. It had to go through a judged similar determination by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And during that time, the C1 zoning district did not include interior access self-storage as a special land use like it does today. In fact, it's my understanding that the judge similar case, as it had a favorable outcome for the owner, was what prompted the change in the zoning ordinance to allow for interior access only self-storage within the C1 zoning district. That was before my time, but I can imagine that the discussion probably included, some other facilities that have interior access self-storage, such as Cube Smart or other facilities like that. And so at the time, they were approved to have that use on that piece of property. Then they went forward with the Planning Commission to have their site plan approval. And so I included in your packet several bits of history in the form of meeting minutes and staff reports from Dan Power from when he was the planning director. And there was a lot of discussion about whether or not any exterior access self-storage would ever be proposed there. And I think at that time, based on what I could gather from all the meeting minutes, that was never something that was planned, nor did it have much reception by the Planning Commission or the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so, today what we're allowing Mr. Witte to do is just have an informal discussion with the Planning Commission to get kind of a feel for what the climate is now for the possibility of having outdoor or exterior access self-storage on that site. And so in your packet, you were provided with a preliminary site plan that lays out the exterior access self-storage units or the buildings with several units within them. And so, as far as the master plan is concerned, it's, that area has big goals for redevelopment with neighborhood commercial. And so allowing for, from a staff perspective, allowing for exterior access self-storage would kind of go against everything that the Planning Commission and staff has been working toward, as well as stakeholders who provided input, during the whole master planning process. But that use would definitely go against what the plan is and what's been laid out in the master plan for that particular site. So that was the other thing that I provided you with in your packet. And so, there's a couple different routes for requests that the property owner could take in order to get in front of the Planning Commission to make a decision, but they don't necessarily want to submit a formal application if they don't think that that staff and members of the Planning Commission can get behind this proposed land use. Oh, Terry, you're muted.
Thank you. Any questions at this point for the comments that, for the Planning Commission, for comments that Tricia has provided in introducing this project?
I do.
Initially, I'm looking for comments from our Planning Commission,
Oh, no problem.
later on for those in the audience. All right. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
If there's none other, now, is Scott providing any perspective on this, the city engineer, this evening?
I'm here and I can certainly provide historical perspective, but because this is a land use discussion, I'll kind of stay in my own lane and let Tricia deal with that.
Okay, thanks, Scott. At this point, if we can turn the floor over to, I believe Steve Witte will be presenting this on behalf of the developer, and you can provide introduction to the project, if you would, please, Mr. Witte.
Certainly. Commissioners, my name is Steve Witte from Nederveld, here tonight representing Pagoda Companies. I think also on the line with me, or the call with me, is Adam Pagoda, who's one of the owners of Pagoda Companies, as well as Dan Bodie from the architectural group. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration regarding this request. I'll give you maybe a little bit more history on the project since I was involved in it back when Everkept purchased the property. So I do remember a fair amount of details to it, as I'm sure a lot of the planning commissioners do as well. So I'll give you a brief overview first, and then I'll tell you kind of what is being proposed by Pagoda. You're all very familiar with the site. This is the former D&W site that sat vacant for quite a few years. Back in 2017, Everkept Storage purchased the property. And then as Tricia indicated, going through what they wanted to do with the property, they wanted to convert the existing building to self-storage. At that time, the zoning ordinance in no way, shape, or form had storage anywhere in their ordinance. It didn't have it in a commercial, it didn't have it in industrial, didn't have it anywhere. The only storage that was mentioned was in the industrial district when it came to like industrial storage. It wasn't at all mini storage at all. So anyways, in talking, I think we back in 2017, we might have even first come to the Planning Commission and informally discussed it with them. And then we applied for a judge similar determination with the Zoning Board of Appeals. And our argument with the ZBA was that the uses that, if you look in the C1 district, the uses are all, or a lot of them are auto-centric. They're for retail, but they're also for personal service, which mini storage or self-storage definitely is. And we felt that the self-storage really fit in with the C1 uses and were very similar. So the ZBA agreed with that determination, and then we proceeded with site plan approval. As Tricia indicated, since that time, I know the city has amended their zoning ordinance to actually include interior access self-storage in all the commercial districts. They've also included or added any self-storage, so an interior and exterior self-storage, I think in the highway service or an industrial type district. So those are the two changes from the zoning ordinance perspective that has happened since the time we went through the approvals in 2017. In 2017, when we were talking to the ZBA and the Planning Commission, Everkept had no desire to have more than the existing building. So we did talk about interior access storage at that time. Everkept had no intentions to doing anything else. So at that time, we didn't ask for a zoning ordinance amendment to just include interior access. We simply said, hey, we want to do self-storage. So that's a little bit of history. So then since that time, just recently, Pagoda has purchased the property and actually a number of other properties from Everkept. So Pagoda, now being the new owner, they want to further develop the property. What they are proposing to do is construct.
Oh, you're muted, Steve.
Sorry about that. So Pagoda, after they purchased the property, what they're proposing to do now is to construct additional self-storage buildings on the property. These new buildings will be exterior access, though, as opposed to the interior access of the existing building. The reason they want to do the exterior access is because it provides a wider target market, the ability to rent to users for a less or lower cost to the users. So it's, again, a little bit different market. And it provides for a growing demand for storage. Adam can speak to this in a minute, but I believe the the existing building is fully occupied and people are looking for more storage in the area. In addition to the additional buildings, they are proposing some improvements to the entrance of the existing building to make it more convenient for their users. I did submit and create and submit a preliminary plan showing more specifically what they are proposing for the site. What is proposed are 3 new buildings to the west of the existing building along Walker Village Drive, and then a total of 6 smaller buildings to the north of the existing building. It's very important to note that there is absolutely no outdoor storage proposed. That was probably the item of most discussion back in 2017. The Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Commission, nobody wanted outdoor storage at all, and that is not at all in this request at all. The only difference between this use and the use that's out there again is the existing use is all interior access, and what's proposed for this additional work is exterior access. We had initial discussions with city staff on how to proceed with this. We requested to be in front of the Planning Commission to have an initial discussion because we want to get the Planning Commission's input on not only the project, but then your input on the proper way to move forward on this. My own opinion is I think there's 2 ways that this could move forward. The first way is basically the same thing that we did in 2017. And what that would be is us making application back to the Zoning Board of Appeals to ask them to do, basically relook at the judged similar. My own opinion on this is that makes a whole lot of sense because I don't see exterior access storage as much different than interior access storage. And I think both of those uses are very similar to the other uses in the C1. The other option that we talked about with staff is to actually do a zoning ordinance amendment. The zoning ordinance amendment could add the exterior access self-storage as a special land use to the zoning ordinance. That would also be an acceptable method to do, in my opinion. And then the other minor things that we talked about is trying to do some sort of a planned unit development or even like conditional rezone. I don't personally think those are probably the best way to go just because there's some issues with like spot zoning and stuff like that. That seems to me a little grayer area. So hopefully, sorry for rambling, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview. Again, we feel the proposed use is in essence the same as the existing use, self-storage. But there are some zoning issues that we need to get through. So that all being said, hopefully that gives you a little bit of overview. And I think at this time, Adam Pagoda from Pagoda Companies will give you a little bit of overview on their company, first of all, and then also kind of why they're doing the exterior versus the interior. So Adam, if you're there, if you want to jump in now, that would be great.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. And thanks everyone for having us and good evening. I think Steve really covered most of it. I just want to maybe give a quick background on the company. We're the largest self-storage company in the state of Michigan. We are based in the state of Michigan. We currently have 13 stores in the greater Grand Rapids area, and looking to actually further expand as we really like this part of the state. As we see it, this property has essentially 5 acres of parking lot that really is just not being utilized. And, the ability to add exterior storage for us was a big component of our purchase of the property. Exterior storage is traditional self-storage that, you see in most of the country. 85% of self-storage is this traditional drive up. And really the beauty of it is it's just way more convenient for the tenants. We see storage in general as an amenity in neighborhoods. 11% of Americans currently have a self-storage unit. And the most convenient for them is when they can drive right up to their unit, put their stuff in, take stuff out. And currently, we don't have that convenience if you want to store a car or, a snowmobile or just those larger items that won't be able to go into the facility. And also, drive-up self-storage is generally priced, 20 to 30% below the interior storage. We don't have to pay for heating and cooling and similar security. So we're able to offer it at a lower price point to tenants and really In general, we like to be able to offer this amenity in every shape and form for the community. And, I really believe here that, it would add a lot for the neighborhood and the community, as well as this property, which is, has just 5 acres of parking lot that's going to be sitting vacant if we can't do anything with it. So that's kind of the brief message. And I do want to reiterate that, we're not planning outdoor storage, no boats, no RVs, no broken down cars. It will be just inside storage. And I know there was some concern about people loading, unloading at all times of the day and it being unsightly. I will tell you, we rent in a good month 25 units. So that's 25 move-ins or less than 1 a day. And in general, I would say, our average facility has maybe 5 to 10 people that visit it on a daily basis, on any given day. So, we're a really quiet neighbor and just really trying to, offer this amenity to the community in a different way. So, open it up to questions to me or Steve, and happy to chat about anything you guys might have concern about.
I guess one other thing I did want to point out, I don't think I mentioned this, and I appreciate all of Tricia's history in the write-up here. And I realize that the Planning Commission and the city just looked through their master plan, but from what I recall back in 2017, this property had the same master zone. So where it says neighborhood node, it was neighborhood node back in 2017 when we went through this process before. And again, from before, the ZBA said the interior, at least the interior self-storage was judged similar. And again, I'll say right now the zoning ordinance says strictly interior self-storage as a special land use, but back in 2017, it didn't say anything. And I don't remember specifically. I mean, when we went to the ZBA and Planning Commission, obviously Everkept was proposing just interior storage, but I don't remember much of any discussion about exterior access storage. I 100% remember outdoor storage being a no-no. But anyways, I just want to point that out, that the zoning, even the master plan, even though it was updated in 2020, I don't think it changed. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Adam. At this point, again, talking just to the planning commissioners, any comments or questions that you have for the applicant? I've got one question.
Looks like Joe's muted.
Okay. Joe, you have a question?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm not Tammy. Tammy's my tech helper, fortunately. I drove by there Monday, and there was a lot of rental trucks in the parking lot. Is that anything to do with you guys?
Yeah, we do rent U-Haul trucks out of our stores, and we've actually had really positive feedback, as there isn't another place that rents U-Haul trucks within 4 or 5 miles of there.
Do they stay inside, or they were parked outside in the parking lot when I went by there?
Yeah, we generally have 3 or 4 different size trucks that we offer to the tenants.
Does that fit the idea you're going to have interior storage or not?
They're separate. I mean, we see offering U-Haul trucks as a similar amenity to people that are moving. If they're moving their stuff from a house or apartment into storage, we like to be able to offer them a rental truck.
Thank you.
Okay. Terry.
Yes.
To weigh in on that topic, we received that information from a concerned resident regarding the U-Haul trucks, and it's not an approved use. And so you should be receiving a letter from Megan Gorby, our code enforcement specialist. So that use was not, though it's an accessory to your primary use of the interior self-storage, it's not a use that was approved by the Planning Commission. And so it is a violation that we are actually pursuing right now.
Oh, I was unaware of that. We've, at our 50 other stores in the state, we offer, either U-Haul, Penske, or Budget, and never run into an issue before. So I guess I apologize for that, and we can worry about that in another session.
Yeah.
Hey, any other questions or comments from the other commissioners? I do have a question. At least the self-storage facilities I've seen in the greater Grand Rapids areas, many of them, if they're exterior access, they're surrounded by, it's a fenced-in facility, and there's some type of a restricted access code in order to enter the property. Is that the what you would be anticipating at this location?
That's a great question. I mean, I think ideally, yes. But one of the challenges with this site is the number of easements that run through and across the site. I mean, my attorney actually told me he'd never seen anything like it in his career, his 30-year career. So generally, we do prefer that. But I don't think that will be possible here. I mean, I think Steve or Dan could probably comment further on whether it'd be possible. But ultimately, I think we would just blanket the whole exterior with cameras, which is really, the best security we actually have. The classic, locks only keep honest men honest, but, the cameras are really, what we use if there ever is an issue.
Okay, thank you. Now, in the past week, a number of people have reached out and contacted city staff with their viewpoints and concerns concerning the proposal, and those have been passed along to the planning commissioners. So those of you out there, residents, nearby property owners, those comments that you've given to us by email have been forwarded to all the commissioners, so we're aware of those perspectives. That being said, just looking to our planning commission here, this is not a public hearing, but we do have a number of interested neighbors in the audience this evening. If there's no issue with that, I'd like to provide an opportunity for those that have some questions or concerns about this from the general public to pose those at this point in time. And again, like earlier in the agenda, if someone wishes to speak, it's a case of raising your virtual hand, again, going to the participants listing, identifying yourself and raising that hand. Otherwise, I think if it's a call in, Jason Rotman, if I'm not mistaken, if they hit *9, that's a way to indicate a desire to speak as well.
Correct. *9 will allow them to speak, and *6 will unmute.
Okay. All right. So, Jason, if you could let us know if there's anyone out there that would like to speak to this matter.
I don't see any hand raised in the perception or the screen yet, but gentleman by the name of DNJRA was waving his hand in video.
Okay.
So if it start there.
Please.
Yeah, I'm Dave Nettie. I have Dave Nettie Artisan. We're at 1331 Walker Village Drive. So we're on the south end of the plaza that adjoins this property of the storage unit. So I have a number of concerns. We have 5 units in that facility, about 4,200 square feet. And we have semi trucks coming in and out. We load, unload. And if they put their storage units there, we have to address that because we have the vehicles that come and go. Plus we have our employees that need the parking. We're a small business. We have anywhere from 5 to 7 employees, depending on the season. And in Walker, there's really not a whole lot of room and space for small businesses like us. And that's that area has very low retail traffic. I know Pop struggles a lot, and now with the shutdown, it really makes it difficult for them. In putting up the storage units, it kind of keeps cementing that non-walk-in traffic, that non-participation. So from my standpoint, I understand what they're trying to do, not trying to raid on their parade. I get it. But we have to have access to our facility. We have to have semi trucks come in. That's why we rented that. I've been there 5 years. We use that space. That was part of our agreement. So if they put up the storage units, that takes away the whole south end of that facility, which hampers what we can and can't do. So I'm concerned about that. So we'll just leave it at that until we see what's what.
Okay, Dave, I wanted to clarify. So you rent several of the spaces within the existing interior building?
Yep, not in their unit. So in the strip plaza that Pops is in,
Yep.
I have the whole south end of that
Gotcha.
plaza, and I have one unit on the north end of Pop. So I have equivalent to about 4,200 square feet in that facility. And we don't have walk-in traffic. We're not interested in walk-in traffic. That's not what we do. So that facility works very well for us. We can't go out and rent 4,200 square feet at the going rates today. If we were to go downtown or wherever, it would be fairly expensive. So being there, we've put a lot of money into that facility, a lot of money in remodeling it and doing what we do. And I just want to make sure that we're not hampering the walk-in traffic that Pops requires. I mean, they're barely hanging on. I don't understand why that facility in the beginning was sold for storage. That would have been a great incubator program for small businesses. So I'm kind of concerned about keep shutting off that corridor to traffic that these small businesses need to survive. I mean, it is crucially important to them to survive. We don't get walk-in. We don't advertise for what we're not in that, but the facility works really well for us. And if they change that, it's going to hurt us drastically on how do we get our equipment and trucks in and out of there.
Okay, Dave, thank you very much for your comment that you're offering.
Welcome.
Well, again, is there anyone else that out there that would wish to offer comment as well?
Yes, there's 3 more. The next is Danielle Giles.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Danielle, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I am a resident who is just to the east of this property. I am at the end of the cul-de-sac where Ripens meets Remembrance and Mullins. It's not what I have heard that we want to do with this property. I'm raising 3 kids on the end of the street. We have made sure to teach our kids that local businesses are going to come first, especially in this time. That being said, I just don't feel like this would be a use that I would hope that my kids would use in the future. This isn't what my kids aren't going to want to look at storage units growing up. They're going to want to see the waitresses at Pops survive. They're going to want to see Alfano's, which has been there since I was a child, survive. Sobeys, Double Dip Depot. These are the places that we need, and we need to do what's best for them. Storage units is not what I feel would be best.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Now, for the record, could we have your address,
Yes.
please?
It's 3385 Ripens.
Okay, we got that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next is, if you want me to keep going.
Yes, please.
Robert Varleen, I'm sorry.
Yes, good evening. Robert Vanderlaan, but you're close. I live at 1240 Linwood Drive in the Village Woods condominium complex. I happen to be the president of the board of Village Woods condominium complex, and speaking for the entire complex, I think I can easily say that we're opposed to this project. I realize that there's no vote going to be taking place tonight, so maybe we're a little early for our opposition, but I think it's good that we be heard. I was present in 2017 when the Everkept people took over the building, and we had our concerns at that time, and one of our major concerns was of traffic in the area, and we were assured that it was an inside storage unit, and that's all it would be. There wouldn't be a lot of traffic in and out of the building, and they would have a security person on site to let people in and out. We also had a concern of outside parking, as well as more outside storage facilities being built, and we were assured by Everkept at that time that would not take place. And when we talked to the commission, I think I got the same feeling from the commission that they didn't care to have any unsightly outside storage units or vehicles or accessories put into the place. Now, all of a sudden it's changed, and we have new owners, and we come back and we try to change the zoning again, or change what's allowed in there, and I just think it's a bad concept, and I don't think it's right to do at this time. You're taking Village Woods condominium complex, which is the closest neighbor, and might I say, we try to be a good neighbor. We try to keep up our property values, our property appearance. We're very good at keeping it up. We have a lot of people that want to move into our complex, and you're taking this complex of 18 years and dumping it right in what could be considered an industrial zone if this goes through. And there's nothing, we can do. We can't put a fence across it. We just have this unsightly look as we come out our entrances and drives. Now, maybe Tricia can speak to this as well, Ms. Anderson, but what do you find on crime in self-storage units like this, open self-storage units? It increases vulnerability for people to come up and want to break into these places. When you get that many people or storage units in one place, you often attract criminals looking to get in as well. And we certainly don't want to bring that into our neighborhood. I think that should be taken into account as well. So speaking for the Village Woods Condominium Association, we certainly oppose any outside self-storage. Now, we're not unhappy with the inside self-storage that Everkept put on. That has gone very well. They've cleaned up the property, and they've done a nice job with that. But I think taking it any further would be a detriment to the existing community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. Jason?
Sorry about that. Next, we have Monica Borgman.
Hi, I also live in Village Woods. My address is 1203 Linwood Drive. So basically we're across the street from Pops. We've only lived here about a year and, have been very happy with the neighborhood. But we're really surprised, I guess, when a neighbor of ours told us about this proposal. And so I guess my first question is how I wouldn't have known about it had it not been for the neighbors. So how, if you live in a neighborhood and a change as large as this is proposed, like what's your proximity of notifying neighbors about what's going on? Because if it hadn't been for my neighbor texting me and say, hey, do you know about the storage units they're proposing across the street, I would not have known anything about it, because I don't go and read the minutes of the planning commission every time you meet.
Okay. First off, again, just reiterating that this is not a formal review at this point. They're just it's an opportunity to look at the concept. But there are protocols in terms of public hearing notices. If it were going to be a rezoning, for example, And Tricia, if you could speak to that, what is the radius that people receive individual notification?
So for a public hearing notice, anytime there is, you know, a major change in use, in this case, it's not a use that would be, that's permitted there right now. And so you'd be looking at one of the routes that Steve mentioned, like a text amendment or a rezone or something along those lines. So a text amendment to the zoning ordinance isn't going to prompt a, it's going to require a public hearing, and we'll put a notice in the paper, but we're not required to send out a postcard to people within 300 feet. If it's specific to the property, then we would notice all of the neighbors within 300 feet of that particular property. And you'd get a little postcard in the mail. So we do courtesy notices, whether it's required or not. Not all municipalities do that, but if anytime there's a site plan approval that's on the Planning Commission's agenda, we send out public notices. It's a public meeting. It's the public hearing portion of it is kind of the technical side of, you know, some of these state statutes that govern zoning and planning. But another good way to stay on top of what's happening in the city is just by going to our website and clicking on the little button that says agendas and minutes. It'll take you to our meetings portal, and you can click on subscribe to e-updates, and then you'll get an automatic email every single time a planning commission meeting agenda is published, or ZBA or city commission. You can choose from the dozens of boards and committees that we have here at the city, and you can get updates. And that's how I stay up to date with what's happening in Algoma Township. Even though I don't live in Algoma Township, but it's always interesting to know what's happening on 10 Mile.
All right, thank you. And it was interesting to read your information packet. You know, I did learn the history, and I actually really liked the 2020 master plan. And I just don't know, I guess if this proposed project really, when you read like your neighborhood, I can't remember, node, it really just doesn't seem to fit with that plan. You know, I visualize, you know, walking to Alfano's, walking to Sobeys, you know, Pops, wherever, the dollar store to get what you need. And you know, that can happen weekly, bi-weekly. I've never walked to a storage facility in my life. I don't really see that as like a neighborhood service, and I'd actually be curious to find out if there is a way, how many of the people that are using that facility are actually what you would consider in the neighborhood or even in the city of Walker.
Okay, thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mary Beth.
Mary Beth?
My audio. There we go. Hi, Mary Beth Scheid and my husband Joe. I did write in an email as well, but we actually live we butt right up to the back of this facility. So out our kitchen window are the 6 U-Haul trucks that you guys spoke of earlier that we see. When we first moved in here 5 years ago, there was woods and it was private and it was very nice for a corner lot within the residential. And since then, all the trees have come down. Everkept took over and the indoor storage facility. So I've seen and lived through, you know, so far through all of this, but I just cannot see where outdoor storage units fits in at all with what the plan is for the master plan for this community. I mean, we sit in our front and watch and talk to people as they walk down to Double Dip Depot in the summer. And now we have the brewery across the street and people sit outside. And I mean, that's the kind of feel that this what we moved here for, what this community is all about. And to have something that industrial in your own, right in your backyard, like my grandkids play outside and we have gatherings out there, and like to have that be our backdrop to our house in the city is not what we want at all, nor is it why we moved here. So we're just really, we're really against this. Not that storage isn't necessary, but not in this space. This space does not fit, I don't think, what this community is looking to be. And if that is what this community is looking to be, then maybe we don't want to be a part of it, because this is not what we signed up for. Nor do we want our house to be not worth a dime when we move, because who wants to buy a house that backs up to a storage facility? So we're really not happy.
We appreciate your comments. For the record, please, your address.
Oh, sorry, 3384 Remembrance Road.
Thank you. And again, thank you again for sharing your thoughts with us this evening.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
Certainly. Jason?
I see no other hands raised.
That being the case,
James DeWinter is raising his hand.
Who's?
Oh, yep.
Hi
I
there.
see him in the chat.
Okay.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm at 1462 Marlin, as well as 3284 Remembrance Road. And when I look at it, I really hope that you take the time to hear what everybody has to say in the plans to build the master plan. That's not really what we had envisioned for the master plan. I would just hope that you listen to what the master plan kind of is envisioning, seems as though we had all these meetings about it. I'd like to see, if the developer was coming, don't get me wrong, I completely agree with, growing your business, everything like that. Hence, I am a business owner, but I would hope that we can look at building it to something that's more usable, especially more than 11% of Americans. If we're looking at 70% of Walker residents using the area, definitely. But if the plan today came through and it was showing new businesses, new buildings involved, which maybe they want to look at that in the future if this gets denied, and they maybe want to develop their property into having multiple other facilities and rentals for new businesses, that'd be great. I just hope that we take the master plan, kind of simulate that as we go, because I really like that one, as well as in 2017, they have a rendering there that's different than the 2020 master plan. That also looks really nice. So yeah, definitely bring in some more people, some more businesses into the area. Remembrance over the years has really declined. I know since D&W shut down and they were just using it as storage, things have kind of dropped. But we got some new businesses coming in. Sobeys bought the building. They've been doing really well. Alfano's, they've really grown their business. I see a lot of growth and a lot of potential in the area. And I hope that we can really kind of create that and bring that up and bring more growth into the area that's actually going to be usable for more than 11% of Americans, maybe more like 50 to 100% of Walker people. So,
James, thank you very much. Jason, anyone else?
Not that I'm seeing. A reminder, if you're on a phone, *9 will raise hand, *6 will unmute you. But
Mr. Chairman, if I could address maybe some of those comments
briefly, please. Yes.
Very briefly. Okay. Again, I thank you for the time and the comments tonight. And to reiterate that the purpose of us coming to Planning Commission now was to informally discuss it with the Planning Commission, to hopefully get a sense for the receptiveness of the project, but then also to get your opinion on the best approach moving forward for the project. But just a couple of things I'd like to reiterate. The D&W building sat vacant for many, many, many years before it was purchased by Everkept, and the deemed acceptable use at that time was for self-storage. What's proposed now is in essence simply an expansion of that existing use. So it's still going to be self-storage. There's still going to be no outdoor storage, The only difference is it's going to be exterior access instead of interior access. There's a couple of comments on traffic. If the goal is to have lower traffic, I can't think of a less traffic business than self-storage. And then on the reverse side, if the intent is, well, you want more traffic there, well, the reality of it is Pagoda owns the entire property. They have no intentions to split this off, build other commercial buildings and increase the traffic. So you're not going backwards as far as traffic is concerned with this proposal. You're actually moving forward because you're developing more of the property, but you're not developing so much that you get so much more traffic and everything else with it. So again, I understand the master plan. I understand that the grand scheme of things in the perfect world, you'd like other businesses and you'd like to be all walkability and all that. And we can try to accommodate some of that, but the reality of it is it's one property. Like Adam said, there are a ton of easements on this. It's one property owner and it's a business looking to expand. The last thing I'd like to say is I think a person had mentioned crime. And I realize that that's a concern and there are measures to avoid that. And maybe Adam has some data on that, but the reality of it is there's security cameras everywhere. So I understand that concern, but I also remember back when Evercat purchased it, the police department had some concerns about people vandalizing the property because nobody was there. So anyways, I just wanted to, again, appreciate your time tonight. Wanted to address some of those comments and again, hoping to get some input from the Planning Commission on your opinion on the best way forward. So thank you again.
All right, you're welcome.
And can I just clarify one thing very quickly?
One thing.
So 11% of Americans have a storage unit at any given time, but over 50% of Americans have used storage at some point. So I just wanted to clarify that one point. Apologies for interrupting.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Now I look to our planning commissioners. You've gotten some feedback, background from staff, some perspective from the applicant, and then we've had some comments from the neighbors. Steve, you want to start it off?
Yeah, happy to. First, I want to thank all the residents who've reached out. That I got a lot of personally folks contacting me on this, and it certainly helps us to hear some feedback from all of you. For my part, I agree that my vision of what our intent was when we put together the 2020 master plan, I don't think this fits into what we were trying to do with this area. I think the mayor and the commission have some big plans for this corridor and some of the improvements that we want to make over the long term to really try to revitalize this area. And I think I don't think this helps us move towards that vision. And putting in that frame of mind, the way that I'm thinking, I'm probably not favorable to the idea of having outdoor storage buildings, or I guess exterior access storage buildings. Is that the proper term? So that's, I guess, generally where I'm at. I would also say on the procedural side, if this was something that they did want to pursue, as someone that sits on the ordinance committee and chairs that committee, I probably would not want to go that direction. If they were trying to pursue that, I would probably feel more inclined to direct them to try the other. And again, I probably am not a yes vote either way from that perspective. I would say that I don't know what the easements look like, but in my perfect world, and obviously the developers are not getting their perfect version of this, and I likely will not either. But if there was potential to maybe split that lot to get better utility out of it for you guys, maybe that's a way to generate some revenue out of this. Because I think we would like to see more of those small, So We Meet style businesses out there, or pops, things like that, places that feel more local and could generate more of that similar style of traffic and people that want to spend some time there. So just that's a thought. Again, I know that the site is crazy and hyper encumbered, and whether I'm talking about something that's founded in reality is your guess is as good as mine. But I guess that's where I stand at this point. And again, thanks everyone for your work on this, and look forward to further discussion on that.
Thank you, Steve. Any other planning commissioners offering comment?
Gary, I'd like to comment.
Yeah, Tyler, please.
I agree with Steve, so I won't repeat all that. The owner said that they bought this property with the intent of putting outside storage in it. Well, if outside access storage had been proposed 3 years ago, I highly doubt it would have gotten past the ZBA, and I highly doubt it, if it did, that it would have gotten past the planning commission. It's not what we're looking for in this area. So I'm sorry, it's just not. We're looking to develop it into a neighborhood. There's thousands of residents around this area. So if we start getting some nice stuff in there to attract these residents and to improve the area, I think that would be beneficial. So thanks.
Thank you, Tyler.
Terry, this is Scott. I was actually on the ZBA in 2017, and I voted against the judged similar at the time. And to their credit, it appears that the interior storage has served the area as well as it probably could have, but I can't envision it going any more than where it's at right now. And it's inconsistent with the spirit and the intent of the master plan. And just to piggyback off of Stephen and Tyler, I would not be in favor at this time.
Thank you, Scott. Joe.
Yeah, I was told this was sort of a plan. You guys just wanted to come in and get a feel what the planning commission had in mind, and they didn't want to spend a lot of time designing something. And I think we're giving you a pretty good idea that we're not in favor of it, and I think you should pursue something else.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, Terry, I can make a comment on this also. This tends to be, I don't think I would be all that in favor of this also. I think there's probably some better uses. I do like the idea of trying to create some sort of neighborhood business or something like that that would kind of help you utilize that property a little bit more.
All right, thank you. From my standpoint, again, as a fellow commissioner, the master plan designation for the neighborhood node, I think that is what the plan calls for. And I would not see this type of expansion of this use to include the exterior access storage to be consistent with that master plan designation. I think a lot of the concerns that have been expressed have been more against anything that would be away from that neighborhood node where additional residential is added into the area and additional small neighborhood businesses to create that walkable feel that I think is desirable and attainable in this area. In terms of the process they'd be following to pursue this, I think the most straightforward is to seek a text amendment as opposed to a judge similar. I was not one that was in favor of the adding this interior use storage to this area or to the zoning allowances for the C1, but it went forward. But if in this case, if there's another text amendment considered, I do not think that it would be consistent with the master plan designation. And so that's my perspective on it as well. Any other comments from the Planning Commission?
Hey, Terry, this is Pat Laurie.
Hey, Pat, please.
Yeah, I listened to, all the comments and I was there for the 2017 and agreed that this piece of property was vacant for many, many years. We were hoping somebody would come in and do something with it, and nothing happened. So finally, something did happen. Not exactly what we wanted, but it's actually worked out somewhat well. I'm not in agreement with having more storage facilities around this building, but I wouldn't be opposed if they wanted to expand the existing building and keep inside storage. That would be something I would consider. Because again, I drive past this parking lot all the time, and everybody cuts through it to get to the gas stations, to Sobeys, to wherever, to Pops. And it'd be nice if something could be put on it. But again, these guys own this land, and they're not going to put in a restaurant. That's not their business. So again, if they wanted to expand the existing building and create more inside storage, because if that's their expertise, I'd be okay with something like that. The one thing that does bother me a little bit is the whole U-Haul thing, because I've driven through and I've seen the U-Hauls, and to do that, I kind of get a little nervous about having them do some other things, because then they might take advantage of that. Not that they would, but it just kind of makes me wonder what other things they might try to do. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Pat. If there's no other comments, again, Adam and Steve, you've sought out feedback. I believe that you've gotten a pretty good variety of it from different perspectives. And again, we appreciate your approaching us. And I guess going forward, if you could go back and work with staff as far as what direction you'd like to pursue, please do so. And with that, we'll move to the next item on the agenda.
Thank you all very much. We really appreciate your time tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time, everyone. Have a good evening.
You as well. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a final area site plan review. It's a public hearing. Kent County Road Commission is looking at relocating its central complex to address at 1900 4 Mile Road Northwest. And with that as an introduction, Tricia, as a planning director, could you provide an introduction to this project?
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I've got a presentation per the usual. Hold on a second while I figure it out. Here it is. Maybe. Okay. So, as Terry mentioned, we've got quite a big project here. The Kent County Road Commission is looking to relocate their central complex to Walker within the Walkerview IPUD. And so just a overview of the property information and the request itself. So the action requested by the Planning Commission tonight for this project is to review the final area site plan for just phase 1 of the Kent County Road Commission Central Complex, and to grant approval with or without conditions or denial of the request. The property address is 1900 4 Mile Road Northwest, and the lot is just under 30 acres in size. The property is zoned IPUD, and it is lots I-21 and I-22, which have been combined for this project of the Walkerview IPUD. The future land use designation from the 2020 master plan is business, and community character designation is enterprise, and it's within the Northwest neighborhood cluster. The general location of the project site is between 4 Mile Road and Northridge Drive, west of the Bristol 4 Mile intersection. And it's directly east of the FedEx site there on Shippers Drive and 4 Mile. And it's also just west of a greenhouse facility that now I'm drawing a blank on the name of the property. So tonight we have Marty Ruiter of Hobbs and Black Architects, and we have Eric Easterly and Mike Roon of the Kent County Road Commission. We also have Jeff Huda with who's the engineering firm representing the Kent County Road Commission tonight. So just a little bit of background. As I mentioned, they're relocating, so they have an existing central complex that's located at 1500 Scribner downtown. And the Kent County Road Commission Central Complex serves as sort of a home base for Central Kent County. And in this complex, it's home to vehicles and equipment and materials and staff and workers for the Kent County Road Commission's construction projects, repair, maintenance, and a lot more. I know there's a lot of road commission folks listening, and I don't want to miss out on, or I don't want to minimize the other things that you do, but those are just some of the few main things that the Kent County Road Commission uses their central complex for. So the current site is limited for any type of expansion due to the 131 highway being on to the west of the complex on the other side of the street, and then the Grand River being directly behind them on the east, and then also on the north boundary of the site, there's a railroad. So they don't have a lot of wiggle room, and they're looking for they've been looking for a site that they can expand in, and they chose Walker. So here is a zoning and general location of the site. 1900 4 Mile. You can see that the site is just south of the 4 Mile border, and Alpine Township is to the north, and there's some agricultural and residential parcels to the north there, but it's essentially surrounded by commercial on all the other sides. There's some agriculturally zoned property to the east here, but it is an industrial agricultural type use with the greenhouses. So here is the plan, the preliminary area site plan of the Walkerview industrial planned unit development. So this is the whole thing. A portion of it is industrial, and another portion of the PUD is for commercial uses. And as I said, they've combined sites I-21 and I-22 for a 30-acre project parcel here. So they're breaking their proposed improvements to the site for the new complex into 2 phases. The final area site plan that's before you today is just for phase 1. Phase 2 is essentially everything north of this line, plus some items down here in the first or in the southern portion of the site. So the phases aren't necessarily separated by geography, but they are mostly. But there are some items down on the southern end of the site that will be constructed as part of phase 2. And then there's also some pieces that will be constructed on the northern portion of the site that will be constructed as part of phase 1. And I'll go into those improvements in just a second here. So as I noted, the phase 1 items will include outdoor storage areas, the building D cold storage, building C, which is the salt storage building, pretty important place there for the winter time. And they've got some material storage bins that they're planning for this first phase, additional outdoor storage here, and then some outdoor storage for materials, equipment, and vehicles over here on the eastern side. This vehicle wash is proposed as part of phase 1 or phase 2. They're also proposing the paving and the stormwater detention, utilities, and the perimeter fencing and landscape improvements and mass grading for phases 1 and 2 as part of phase 1 of the project. So just going through some of the areas of my report, I've highlighted some areas that were either questionable or needed some clarification or needed some additional information. We held a site plan review committee meeting that went really well, and we were able to communicate our comments to the applicant, and the subsequent revised plans were provided to us to incorporate most of those comments. So I'm just going to go through a couple of areas where we still had some questions about some of the areas on the revised site plans. So the first thing that I'll talk about here is the outdoor storage of equipment and vehicles. So they're proposing to use phase 1 as sort of a transitional as an area for logistics with transitioning from the existing site to the new site. And so there'll be a lot of movement of materials, vehicles, equipment, and whether it's being stored there or used there, you know, utilizing some of the materials like the salt from the salt barn, or any of the other materials that will be stored there. But they have not provided any delineated areas on the plan for large equipment and vehicles like dump trucks and snow plows and backhoes. And, you know, I know I'm not naming all the equipment, but we don't have any specific areas that are shown on the site plan. So the Planning Commission will need to decide whether or not the parking areas for large vehicles and equipment is essential with the approval of the final area site plan. In taking a look at the existing site from the aerial photo that I included in the packet, you know, it kind of looks like they have, they run quite a tight ship over there, and it looks pretty organized from the aerial photo. So again, the Planning Commission will have to decide whether or not they'd like to see that on the plan. And another item that we'd like to have them kind of give us a clarification on is we've got Article 15 from the general ordinance that requires that these performance standards are adhered to. And in this particular site, these items will be mostly related to dust and drifted and blown materials and sound. So we just need to have some statement or indication that that section of the ordinance will be complied with. And if there's any mechanisms or means to keep that kind of stuff under control, that's what we'd like to hear about. So we have another area where the zoning ordinance specifically calls out that no outdoor storage shall be located within the required side or rear yards. So in this case, we've got a 20-foot side yard setback, building setback. And so the plan is proposing outdoor storage all the way up to this property line. And the applicant, I spoke with the applicant today, about this, and I also did a site visit, and I went out and walked the site to see what that line looked like. What they're asking for is, and this is after I got my staff report out, but the applicant's now asking for to be able to utilize that area and to be able to store equipment right up to have outdoor storage of equipment right up to the property line. The neighboring property owner to the east has equipment stored right up to the property line. And so staff is okay with the request and being a PUD benefit if adequate opaque screening is provided along that line to screen that outdoor storage. And then the only caveat to this, or the only condition that we'd like to add to it, is that it should be revisited if the property to the east changes hands or changes use. So the parcel, if I could back up to the zoning map here, this is the line that we're talking about here. And this piece right here is zoned agricultural, or AA. Up here, it's zoned industrial or light industrial, but the entire site is has the same use and accessory uses, all belonging to the same owner. And so, you know, if anything ever happens with this particular parcel, we'd like to revisit the outdoor storage all the way up until the line. And so that's been added as a modified condition of approval. And then, so speaking of PUD benefits, they are requesting some areas that are added as PUD benefits, which essentially means that the Planning Commission can waive certain requirements or provide a little bit of flexibility with some of the ordinance requirements because the property is located within a PUD. But any of those modifications must reflect the purpose and the objectives of the PUD and its conformance with the city's general development plan. And so they are asking for some additional signage, which staff is okay with. They have frontage on Northridge, and they also have frontage on 4 Mile, and they're going to be asking for a number of wayfinding signages, which is permitted, but really what they're asking for is ground mount signs on both 4 Mile and the entrance on Northridge Drive. And so the other request for a PUD benefit is, if the Planning Commission is okay with it, to not require them to provide any delineated parking areas for the large equipment and vehicles on site. And then the last one that they're asking for, which was the most recently that came in today, is the outdoor storage within the 20-foot side yard setback. And if the Planning Commission feels comfortable with that, then we can add that as a modified condition of approval. Another thing I know they're going to bring up tonight, the stormwater management plan, they would like to modify a little bit. And obviously this is Scott's bailiwick here, but I just thought that I would preface that conversation with the comparison of the two plans. And what they would like to do is add an additional detention area here. And what their goal is to reduce or remove the underground storage of stormwater, which is my understanding that would be preferred. And so I'll let Scott speak to that, but I just wanted to show this graphic here because I know the applicant is going to want to talk about this a little bit. My main concern with the change in this, the stormwater management facilities and the detention basins would be what other areas are affected by it. And so it looks like some added outdoor storage would be included here. And so I'm not sure, and I'll have the applicant speak to this, whether or not the topsoil deposit or storage area, if that's going to be moved to another area of the site, or if that's not needed at all. So we'll need some clarification on that when we get to that. So I'd just like to go over my conditions of approval that apply to the item that we mentioned about performance standards. The applicant should provide a statement indicating that the performance standards will be complied with prior to the issuance of any building permits for phase 1. And then for the outdoor storage, my original condition states that the applicant shall revise the plan to relocate outdoor storage. But if the planning commission is comfortable with it, I'd like to revise that condition to state that outdoor storage is permitted within the 20-foot side yard setback on the east side of the parcel, but will be revisited or maybe modified if the property to the east changes hands or use, and also that border be screened with opaque fencing, which we would need detail on. So screening details will be needed for perimeter fencing. The perimeter fencing is shown, but we don't have any detail for it as far as height and materials. Parking areas for large trucks, the planning commission will have to decide if that's something that they're comfortable with. We will also need to see details on the retaining wall and dumpster screening, such as the material, height, and location prior to the issuance of any building permit for phase 1. The applicant will also need to provide a statement from Consumers Energy indicating that the proposed structures and uses are permitted within the easement, the big consumers easement that covers a large portion of the parcel. And the applicant will also need to install Knox boxes at any gated entries per the fire department and police department. And the applicant shall also adopt the recommendations outlined in the city engineer's report dated November 24, 2020. And then I've made space for additional conditions there if needed in the motion sheet. And I'm trying to unshare my screen. So bear with me a second here. There we go.
Well, thank you, Tricia. At this point, from the planning commissioners, any comment or questions that you have of Tricia on what she's covered thus far? If not, we'll move on to City Engineer Scott Connor's review of the engineering detail.
Thanks, Terry. This one's a little bit unique for us because we're not reviewing a developer of a flywheel or a hinge for a seatbelt, or like with Falk Industries where they're telling us this is how we build concrete panels. You got to trust us. You know, here we're dealing with a trusted regional partner that does the same kind of thing we do. So it's kind of nice for us to understand their business and be able to help work through the site plan. As you work through our list, it's pretty short. The first two items are related to driveways. Their driveway is actually in place now and was built, I believe, in 2017 when Northridge was built. At least the entrance to that was poured. But that isn't going to fit their desire for the site today. So what they're going to need to do, or they're proposing to do, is shift that west a little bit. And whenever we have a driveway that infringes on the frontage of an adjacent parcel, we require that they get permission from that property owner. And we don't get super formal. Some communities will require an easement or something like that. We've traditionally said, hey, if you can get a letter, even an email in this day and age from the neighbor that agrees to it, consents to it, then we're fine with it. Because what it does is it impedes their future ability to use that piece of frontage. So we want to make sure that's covered. So I'm hoping that's pretty easy. Now in my memo that says property to the east. I think that was an error. It should say to the west. So keep that in mind. The next item is related to the driveway width. They are proposing a 48-foot wide driveway. And this is really probably the main item from our report that is probably the biggest concern. Our driveway width is 30 foot with a 30-foot radius on either side for commercial and industrial. And if the developer is willing to make the driveway 3 lanes, which we do a lot of times, then we allow those to go up to 36 feet. And that makes it fit a lot better with trucks and heavier duty vehicles. And it doesn't always have to be striped for the 3rd lane, but that's kind of how we get that through our highways rules and regulations. So it would be pretty tough. And I got interrogated a little bit when I met with DPW to review this one last time today. It's pretty tough to justify that 48-foot wide driveway, because if you look at, for example, FedEx's truck entrance to the west, they're able to make it fit with 30 foot, and that's with some of the biggest trucks we have in the city. Also, the Amazon site that was recently approved is getting by with 30-foot width, and many of the other sites up and down Northridge, either are 30 or 36 foot. Even our own site, we have the same size trucks and the same use, is only 30 foot on Remembrance, and I think if we were going to build that again, we'd probably make that 36. But so we would encourage that we try to stick with the 36. Without that, we seem to show a little bit of favoritism, and I'm a little nervous about that with a regional partner and some good friends like we have at the Road Commission, because we have developers up and down Northridge that watch every single development, and as soon as we start to do favors for friends, they call us on it, and they will call us on this one as well. So that's kind of a bigger deal for DPW and engineering, and we can certainly answer questions on that. Next 2 items are environmental related. You'll notice that there's a future fuel depot listed there. The city of Walker does not handle the permitting and restrictions for that, but we can assure you that runs through the state, the old Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, now called Eagle. So they'll certainly have to permit that when that comes in. And the reason they do that is for what's called secondary containment. So if there's a leak or a spill or something like that, there's some way to capture that, and it doesn't get into the wetlands immediately to the east and then eventually into the water course. So they will handle that. You may also remember during the Walkerview development that there was a lot of talk about how that was a brownfield site. There was a lot of arsenic contamination. We just want to make sure here that there's going to be a due care plan. And I think that Kent County has already hired Rose and Westra, a local environmental firm, to provide that plan. And what that does for us is it makes sure that us as inspectors, contractors and folks like that go out there, they know kind of the rules of engagement for what they can do on site. And to give you an example, with Walkerview, until they were able to blend those soils and reduce the arsenic components, people had to go out there with rubber boots on, and they had to wash their hands immediately after leaving the site. And it's basically a couple of good housekeeping practices to make sure that everybody stays safe. And we're very confident that the Road Commission is going to feel the same way there. And I think that's why they've already hired the environmental scientists to take care of that plan. So we'll need to make sure that's a condition. 2 more items. One is that we get the sidewalk grades along Northridge every 50 feet, so that as we go out and get those staked publicly, that we'll have the appropriate grades. It's ever more important here, I think, because you've got a little bit more up and down grade to this than we do on a standard site. This site is a little bit higher than Northridge. And with the environmental concerns there to the east, we just need to make sure that's carefully designed. And then related to the stormwater calculations, we did not do a detailed review on the original plan. And now we look really smart because as of today or earlier this week, a brand new plan showed up for stormwater. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we look at rules of thumb, and we try to make sure that in general things look like they're going to work out. But we have a stormwater permitting process that comes after site plan review, where we get into all the details and make sure that everything is covered completely. I have every reason to believe that the site will be able to handle this. And although we don't like to get changes in plans after the reports are written and plans are submitted, I did review this one, and I think it's probably an improvement. And as long as you're okay with deferring that to engineering, we can work through that and make that change. It saves them from having underground detention, which is expensive and hard to maintain. And it also reduces their retaining walls that are needed, which is a good thing because it's saving public dollars for the road commission. And the lower retaining walls are certainly safer as well. You never know who's going to be out there or what kind of what might happen someday. And if they have a 6-foot wall versus a 12-foot wall, I think the 6-foot wall is better for everybody. So we want to try to help with that change. So those are all the conditions that we have. One other maybe note to throw out there. If you think about what our DPW yard looks like out behind City Hall, this is really the same kind of thing. It's not your old-fashioned salt piles and gravel all over the place. And as soon as the wind picks up, it's a dusty mess for everybody downstream. We don't allow gravel, as you know. So they've made some changes to make sure they have dustless, non-erodible materials and paved materials out there. So we're hoping that this isn't going to be the old-fashioned public works yard. This is going to be more like what we've got with kind of a newer version that will fit a little bit better in the local neighborhood there. That's it for us.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Again, commissioners, any comments or questions for Scott at this point? Okay. Now is an opportunity for the applicant to make the presentation. I believe Mr. Steve Warren is wishing to take the lead on that.
Yes, thank you, Terry. Although I think the name on my computer says Jane Warren, that's my wife, but Steve Warren, Managing Director, Kent County Road Commission. I just want to briefly indicate our appreciation to the City of Walker, to the professionalism of staff, their appreciation of what we're proposing here. And so we're excited to have the opportunity to not only develop a new central complex, which is so important and so vital to our operation, but the opportunity to locate out of the city of Grand Rapids to the city of Walker. This particular site fits our needs. When we think about the future, it's the right size. We're moving from a little under 15 acres to 30 acres. It has great proximity to the central part of Kent County, which is what this central complex serves. It also has close proximity to the freeway network. And this facility will provide excellent service, not only to the central part of Kent County, but even to the citizens of Walker as they use the state trunk line system. So we're excited to have this opportunity and again, to continue that close partnership and collaboration with the city of Walker. It's an ideal site, it's an ideal partnership, and we're excited to pursue this. To answer maybe some of the questions or to get into some of the details, as was mentioned by Tricia, we have quite a few people participating in the Zoom meeting here today. So joining myself on behalf of staff, we also have, I think, participating is Mark Rambo, who is the chairman of our board. But we're also joined by a very excellent consulting team. That's represented by Marty Ruiter, who's the architect, the lead architect with Hobbs and Black. He's being assisted by our civil engineering consulting firm of Nowak and Fraz with Jeff Hoda. We also have joining us James Moyer, our owner's rep. In addition to some of our staff, Steve Roon, who may be able to answer questions about things like material storage. He's our Assistant Director of Maintenance, as well as one of our engineers, Eric Easterly. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to any one of those folks who may be able to address some of the comments that have been brought forward. We want to be a good partner, not only with the city of Walker, but a good neighbor to the folks to the east and the west. We want to take care of this site. This will be our home for many more decades. We've been along the river, along Scribner Avenue for 100 years. So as I look at it, this is our home for the next 100 years. So Terry, thank you for the ability to provide some introductory comments, and I will turn it over to our team to address some of those questions you had.
Wonderful. Again, my name is Jeff Huda, and I guess I'll pick up the ball here from Steve and carry it here for a little bit. I'm the civil engineering consultant on the team with Nowak and Frous, and I really wanted to echo Mr. Warren's commentary relative to staff. Your staff is tremendous to work with, especially as it relates to some of the really difficult issues. This is not a very easy site to develop. We've got close to 35 feet of grade change from one side of the property to the other. And so from that standpoint, we really appreciate staff working with us and helping us through the process. That's a tremendous compliment to them and how they handle things. So a couple of things that we wanted to address as it related to staff reports. Hopefully we can get through that quickly for you here. The storage of material on site really is centered around plow blades, pipe, things of that nature. We're really not focusing on the storage of vehicles. So when we look at originally the vehicles, and the reason why we're not showing any vehicle parking in the phase one is that all of the workers that are going to be operating out of this facility will be reporting to the existing central complex. They'll pick up their truck, and if they need salt to reload their salt for plowing and things of that nature, they'll drive to this facility on an interim basis while the rest of the construction is going on, and they'll pick up a load of salt, and then they'll go back out and do what they need to do. So this phase one development really is this interim development as it relates to the overall project. To give you a little bit of an understanding of schedule, because I think timing between phase one and phase two would be critical for you to understand that. Currently, phase one is proposed to be under construction in March of 2021 as we go through the construction document phase and getting a contractor on board and all of those elements. Simultaneously with that, right about March of 2021, it is our intention to be back before you with a site plan approval package for the phase two development. So we're really trying to create this parallel path, allow construction to get started within the phase one area so that the road commission can start the process of moving their facilities over into this area. It's going to take a long process to be able to move from one facility to the other. So the phasing strategy is really centered around the ability to migrate all of their equipment and staff and all of those things from one facility to the other. Hopefully you can understand that that's a pretty monumental task to pick up and move a road commission facility from one location to another. So bottom line is these are going to be happening one right after the other. So as it relates to things like dumpsters, yes, we will have dumpsters out here. Those are all being proposed as a part of phase two. We don't believe that there's any operations that will be occurring during the phase one operations where dumpsters will be required. if for some reason a dumpster is required in advance of the phase 2 construction, we'll certainly bring that to your attention, the staff's attention, and seek those permissions and approvals in advance. But we're not anticipating that being a need as we transition from one facility to the other. As it relates to the storage of the material along the east property line, we do appreciate Ms. Anderson's commentary there. The Road Commission has done a tremendous job of reaching out to all affected parties as a part of this project. They've met with the FedEx folks. They've met with the nursery folks. We've had meetings with consumers and ITC. And we've had meetings with Eagle as it relates to impacts on the site and how the site will be managed. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So from those discussions, there's great comfortability that the approvals that are needed from FedEx for the potential encroachment of the driveway approach across their frontage, that's not going to be an issue. The discussions with the nursery folks on the other side, there's no concerns that have been brought up with respect to storage of materials along that common property line. We're totally comfortable with the understanding that we need to provide an opaque fence along there that will be provided in the construction details. So that's going to work just fine for us as well. So we believe that all of those permissions are going to be granted. Preliminary comments from ITC and consumers have been very positive. We do have a couple of small issues to work through with them, and that's will be discussed a little bit in a few minutes as well. So from all of those kinds of issues, we feel that the site plan as presented is the logical first step in the process. And so what I'd like to do now, and I really appreciate that the Planning Commission is willing to look at what we considered as a plan enhancement. Ms. Anderson had it in that side-by-side analysis, and I know Mr. Connor also alluded to the fact that they believe that this is how the stormwater management of the site is morphing as a result of some changes is a very positive change for really all parties involved. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I'd like to pull up that plan and just describe how why we're making these changes and proposing it, and hopefully you guys will be able to understand that and be able to approve things and move forward with that tonight. So I'll pull my screen up here in a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So as an overall site plan, a couple of unique things occurred as a result of the continued design development process. First of all, the Road Commission had the opportunity to meet on site with Eagle, and the Road Commission, because of them being a public agency, has a different process that they go through. This isn't a developer process or developer-driven process with Eagle. We have a little bit more latitude in dealing with Eagle, and we have a stronger voice at the table to work through these issues. So what the Road Commission was able to do is meet with Eagle, and if you can see my cursor right now, there's a portion of wetland along this the southwestern or southeasterly area of the site. The Eagle has allowed for the disturbance of up to 1/3 of an acre of the site plan or the wetlands on site for the benefit of the project. In return, what we're doing is there's a large peninsula area which amounts to about 1/2 acre of property, which we are going to place in conservation easement for the ability to disturb that 1/3 of an acre of wetland. This was a game changer and came up really after the site plan had already been submitted. So that game changer allowed for a couple of things. One, it expanded the area in which we could create a third stormwater detention facility in that southwest quadrant. And more importantly, it gave us the outlet elevation that was needed to successfully deal with the drainage which was in front of the cold storage building. Originally, the plan that you have in your packet right now shows an underground stormwater detention area which discharges separately to the wetland. What happens now is this third above ground detention facility now can accommodate that drainage with the discharge elevation, and it provides for, in our opinion, a much better water quality discharge from the site than what would normally be produced by having multiple discharges going into that wetland. So that was a big win. And one of the other things that occurred just recently is that as we've gotten the environmental folks on board and digging into that a little bit deeper, is that originally our anticipation was that the site arsenic contamination was going to be more widespread across the property. What we're being told right now is conservatively only about 40% of the site is being impacted by these contaminated soils. So the need to have a much larger area to lose those spoils on site is no longer there. So that also allowed us the ability to open up this area in the southwest quadrant for an enhanced stormwater management strategy. So with the way the stormwater management works is we've got a bio retention area up in this area, which is retention area A, that now will drain into detention area B, which has been reduced in size. It's reduced in size in part to address some of the preliminary comments that we received from ITC. Their desire to provide for a better avenue to maintain their electrical lines. So by reducing the size of this detention area B, we are now satisfying those preliminary comments from ITC for maintenance of their wires. So we feel that that was a major win for the project moving forward. Now, detention basin B drains into detention basin C. So you can see what's happening is we've now developed this cascading effect with respect to stormwater management. We're filtering stormwater in pond A. We're filtering stormwater in pond B. In addition to that, we're filtering stormwater in pond C, and we're also going to be adding a mechanical structure on the outlet side of that pond to further enhance the stormwater drainage characteristics of what's going on. So outside of that, all stormwater now is being designated to a single discharge point, and it really is a home run compared to the plan that's before you for stormwater management. So we wanted to make sure that we addressed and talked about that in detail. Now, as it relates to the drive approach and the drive approach width, we understand staff's comments on that. And I think we would want to continue to have that dialogue. We would like the Planning Commission to accept the width of the 48 feet as a PUD benefit to this particular project. And one of the things that Mr. Connors brought up was with respect to, well, if we give it to this facility, you know, what about other facilities? And I think the counter argument to that is that this particular facility is been assigned or is identified as an essential facility within the region. That comes with a very significant, it's a very significant statement in the sense that an essential facility has to be designed to a much higher level of standard as it relates to construction codes. Being an essential facility, we actually are designing the foundation system. We had to do a special deep boring, 100-foot deep boring We need to meet certain seismic requirements as it relates to the structural integrity of the facility. That's what an essential facility means. And by that, so when we're looking at how this facility operates, and I'm sure Mr. Connors understands this, when that snowstorm hits and all of a sudden we've got to get 30 trucks dispatched onto the site, you can understand that we have a need to get trucks out of there very quickly. There's a lot of trucks moving in and out. I think the Kent County facility, and I don't know this, maybe Mr. Connors can weigh into it, is a much larger facility as it relates to the numbers of trucks and the movements in and out of the facility that we would expect to see. Possibly it's a similar size facility, and I apologize, maybe I should have looked at that in advance, but our biggest concern is the efficient flow of vehicles in and out of the site. I think we've looked at it. We've looked at it in greater detail. If the commission would be willing to, if there's a potential compromise here, I think that we could get away with a 42-foot wide apron and still meet the requirements that the road commission is trying to attain here. So we could reduce it from the 48 to the 42. If that would be some middle ground that we would be able to achieve in that. As far as the remaining items and report, I believe that we've addressed most of those in the presentation that we've made. We will seek the permissions. We will get the approvals and provide those to you as a part of the construction document review process. From an environmental standpoint, again, we're on top of it. We understand exactly what needs to be done with respect to that. Dust, Mr. Connors is exactly right that the materials that are being selected for the quote unquote pervious areas, it's really a wrap material. Once the sun hits that, it's still permeable. Water is able to filtrate through it, but at the same time, it doesn't have the dusting issues and things of that nature. It's a really, the road commission has an endless supply of clean wrap material that we'll be marshaling to this site and using for those laydown areas. So with that, I think I've addressed the majority of the comments, and certainly if there's any other comments from the consulting team, now's the time to do that, or we'd be happy to answer questions from the Planning Commission. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, this is a public hearing this evening, and I think at this point, before we go into the ask to open the public hearing, are any questions that planning commissioners have for the applicant at this point in time? Okay, there being none, I'd entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing. This is Tyler.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Jason, to open the public hearing. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And at this point, Jason, if you could, again, those in the audience that would wish to speak to this project, go to the participants page, identify yourself, you're wanting to put your hand up, or hit the *9 if you're calling in, if you have any comments or questions on the project.
I don't see any yet, but we can wait a minute if you want.
Okay, let's do that. All right. No takers then?
Does not look like it.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'd make that motion to close the public hearing. This is Tyler.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Stephen. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, covered a lot of ground here this evening. A number of changes have been introduced. And we've had some discussion on how those changes would, the reason for those and how those would operate on the site. Any conversation at this point?
I mean, so the big one that is sticking out there would be the driveway width, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And there's also the change in the stormwater design. We do have the benefit of the city engineers has taken a look at that and feels that it is workable. I think he, as Scott put it, he'd be comfortable if the commission felt could delegate to that for him to work that out with the applicant in this case.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the fact that there appears to be a recognition that with this particular PUD, there's no allowance for truck traffic on Bristol Avenue. And I think from the truck turning that they show on their graphics, they're showing just smaller pickups heading east out to Bristol, and the balance of the larger trucks will be heading to points to the west and perhaps to the north as they would approach either Walker or Former Road. Jason, you look like you're ready to say something.
Well, I was going to comment on a couple things there. In regards to the properties being adjacent, I think I'm comfortable with what Tricia was saying and recommending where they were storing right next to it. In regards to the width, I think I'm kind of sticking right with what Scott is asking for for the 36 foot. Although I think that there's been some justification in the past for some wider. I think that that's done at a staff level, which seems to make some sense. I believe other sites there have had, they've changed the configuration a little to make it easier to go out since we're not directing any traffic towards Bristol. And then I also agree with the changing of the stormwater. I thought that was better also, and so kind of paid attention to that too. And I like the idea that we have multiple flushes along the way to kind of help deal with that. So just a couple quick comments there. Otherwise, genuinely in favor.
Thank you, Jason.
I would agree with Jason on that one and don't want to repeat it. So let's just go with Jason.
Thank you, Tyler. Any other comments?
Yeah, I guess because the driveway thing is the one thing that's kind of sticking in a funny spot. I feel like if we can, I guess I understand that you just want the width so that you can move the vehicles a little better. I guess, is there any more detail you can give me on that so that I can wrap my head around what the extra 8 or 12 feet is going to do for you? Is it just to make the templates work better, or to make that inbound motion?
Maybe I can jump in and help out, Steve, because I think the driveway is a little bit unique in that it's governed under our highway rules and regulations ordinance. And almost everything that you get a variance for in the city goes to the ZBA or the Planning Commission. This is the one exception. The highway rules and regs we can do at staff level. So I think understanding that Jeff said, hey, they can get away with something a little less than that. We can work at staff level to get a couple feet here and there to maybe change the radius, to do something that's still in the spirit of what our ordinance allows, but doesn't go to this full extent of the 48 feet. Because obviously that gets us in some trouble. And I certainly understand Jeff's sales pitch and the idea that they're essential and all that. You know, we know all about being essential. So But I think if you do defer that to staff level, we can provide some flexibility and try to get that done so that you don't have to play let's make a deal tonight, because
Okay.
every time we play let's make a deal, it gets weird.
Yeah, no, perfect. That's exactly what I needed to hear for my part. So
That's kind of where I was going with that, Steve, too. Just saying, okay, stick with Scott's initial, what he's saying, but then there are ways that he can kind of work through that a little bit.
Yep, and the report has nothing barring. So okay. I'm clear on it.
Okay. Tricia, as you've listened to the discussion this evening and as they relate to the recommendations you made, is there anything there that's still pending out there that you still needs to be clarified?
One question I had was on the revised plan that shows the 3 detention basins, and whether or not you still will need an area for storage of topsoil, or is that going to be located somewhere else on the site? I just wanted some clarification on that. I don't know if Jeff, if you would like to.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen again.
Okay.
So you can understand that a little bit. There's a couple of things that are going to happen, and and again, as I mentioned before, we've identified that only 40% of the site has been identified as being contaminated. So, and we expect that to go down. That was a conservative estimate. So, what we have here is we've actually increased the setback along Northridge Drive. So we're close to a 60-foot setback along through here. So this whole green belt here, our anticipation is that we're going to cut that down and bury a lot of the any particular contamination in that area here. We may have the ability to put it along the backfill for the retaining wall up and through this area, and we'd be capping that obviously and doing it in conformance with environmental issues or concerns. And then also up in the 4 Mile area, we've already looked at the phase 2 plan. We believe that we're able to possibly reduce some of this paving, which is going to open up a pretty large area up and through here to where we'd probably end up burying the topsoil in that area. So with those things in mind, we believe that there's avenue, and we did have that discussion with environmental. Environmental stated that this material needs to be at least 1 foot above any groundwater conditions, so we know how to handle it from that perspective. We can't undercut detention basins and put it in the detention basins, so we understand that as well. So our hope is that between the total volume of material that we would be considered contaminated on site, that there's enough place on site to take it. If not, we will have that disposed of off site at the appropriate location. But the goal is to keep it on site as much as possible.
Okay.
And the only other thing that I'd point out, because I think I missed it in my presentation, is that the retaining wall that's being proposed now as a result of these changes, and Mr. Connors had brought it up, we're at a maximum 5 foot high wall now, whereas before we were looking at something that was like approaching 10 to 12 feet in this corner of the site. In addition to that, we're actually going to build that retaining wall as a future foundation for the cold storage building additions. So they'll be able to build the cold storage building additions right on top of that wall, which will be a little bit more efficient for materials. We don't have to worry about different types of retaining wall materials, things of that nature. So that's a little bit further generation of the site plan development.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, I think we've covered both the engineering and planning recommendations that we have before you. They've been modified a bit in light of the revisions to the site layout. Is anyone here ready to offer a motion?
Yeah, I can. And before I do that, I just want to clarify for the fourth condition regarding the delineated parking areas for large trucks as a part of phase one. We did not feel we required that, or I don't feel we require that, correct?
Well, in terms of the project description that was given to us this evening, it sounds like there will be no overnight parking and storage of vehicles. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yeah, that is correct.
So what we'd be looking at is during the daylight hours, parking of vehicles, and it sounds like those vehicles are going to be there and gone. Again, given the description that's been given. So
right. So we just don't need that condition to be made mention of, right?
Yeah.
Yep, just remove that condition.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I'm straight on it. Okay. Then I'm ready to make a motion, Mr. Chair. And I will make a motion to approve the final area site plan for the improvements indicated as phase one of the Kent County Road Commission Central Complex per the plan last revision dated 11/18/2020 on lots I-21 and I-22 of the Walkerview IPUD at 1900 4 Mile Road Northwest, subject to the following conditions. The applicant shall provide a statement of compliance with Article 15 performance standards prior to the issuance of any building permits in phase one. The applicant shall provide opaque screening details for the outdoor storage up to the property line on the east side of the site. Storage is permitted up to the line as a PUD benefit. The storage area shall be revisited if the property to the east changes hands or use. The applicant shall revise the plans to provide opaque screening along the eastern property line of phase one, north of the proposed topsoil deposit area prior to the issuance of any building permits for phase one. The applicant shall submit details on the retaining wall and dumpster screening, material height location prior to issuance of any building permit for phase one. The applicant shall provide a statement from Consumers Energy indicating that the proposed structures and uses are permitted within their easement. The applicant shall adopt the recommendations outlined in the city engineer's report dated 11/24/2020. The applicant shall provide a Knox box at any gated entrances per City of Walker Police Department. Okay. Unique use findings of fact per section 94-250. The establishment, maintenance, location, or operation of the use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public. The use is compatible with the intent of the zoning district and will not change the essential character of the surrounding area. The use will not be injurious to the use or enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes permitted. Will not substantially diminish or impair property values within the area and will not result in any significant adverse impact on the natural environment. The establishment, maintenance, location, or operation of the use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for the uses permitted in that district. Adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary services or facilities have been or will be provided such that the use will not place demands on public services or facilities in excess of capacity, and the use will in all other respects conform to the applicable regulations of the zoning district in which it is located, conditions imposed on approval, and all other applicable provisions of law, ordinance, or statute. Final area site plan findings of fact per section 94-219B and 94-2136 and 7. The Walkerview IPUD, as detailed on the final area site plan, continues to meet the standards contained in section 3G regarding PASP content and does meet any other applicable standards for review. The final area site plan is in substantial compliance with the previously approved PASP, consisting of the maps and accompanying written materials required under subsection 2 of section 94-213. Final area site plan complies with the uses permitted by the Walkerview IPUD and any prohibitions of specific uses by Planning Commission pursuant to 94-2133J. Appropriate services by public water and sewage utilities, public roads, and other essential services will be available for immediate use of occupants of I-21 and I-22. Lots I-21 and I-22 will have direct access to a public collector or arterial street. All future uses on lots I-22 and I-21 will be designed, constructed, and operated to comply with the performance standards as provided by Article 15 of the Walker zoning ordinance. Loading docks, truck and truck maneuvering areas will be designed and located so as not to adversely affect adjacent and neighboring lands or uses due to noise, odor, light, or other external effect. Except as otherwise expressly approved by the Planning Commission, all permitted principal uses on lots I-21 and I-22 will not be or will be conducted within a completely enclosed building except for loading and unloading operations, on-site parking of vehicles, and the reasonable storage of materials and products which are related to the principal use of lots I-21 and I-22 as shown on the final area site plan.
I'm sorry, Steve, I wasn't listening. Can you repeat that?
Check the recording.
I support that motion.
I've got a question. In terms of Tricia's report, you talked about a PUD benefit on the signs. Is that contained within this motion?
I did not have that in the motion, or I didn't have it in the conditions of approval.
Okay. Do we have to affirmatively authorize a PUD benefit for signage at this point? Or is that covered in the phase 2?
They won't be adding any signage until phase 2. But I think we're okay with not having it as a condition as part of phase 1.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions on the motion? We've got a motion and support to approve it conditionally and with the cited findings. We'll call this to question. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I think we're set. Now, one thing though, this is as a virtual meeting. Formal action on this project should have been done by a roll call vote.
We can still do that.
Well, why don't we do that just to make sure we're covering all the bases?
Okay.
Make sure during the roll call vote that everyone's video is on and you raise your hand as you go through it for it to count.
Thank you, Jason.
Jason. Okay. Terry.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
All right, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you, Road Commission crew.
Thank you so
On
much.
behalf of the Road Commission, Terry, Planning Commission members, thank you very much. We appreciate again your consideration of our proposal, and we're excited to move forward. So thank you again.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
All right. At this point, any other business, Tricia, Scott?
We have a couple of upcoming projects at the next Planning Commission meeting, which will also be via Zoom. So we're getting some good practice here. Hydrologic and Aloft Hotel Suites will be on the Planning Commission agenda on December 16th. And then on the 6th of January, we'll have a proposed amendment to the Walkerview CPUD to allow for gas stations as a use permitted on specific lots within that development. We also will be having or tentatively planning for a public hearing for the Waterford Village development on January 27th, and the location is to be determined at this point. I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Tricia. Scott?
I'm probably going to miss the next meeting with some back surgery, so Travis will be attending. So go easy on him. If you've got questions well in advance, you can get a hold of me, and I'll try to help with that. But I think I'm going to try to avoid all contact for a good week after surgery next Wednesday to avoid saying things that might be on painkillers or anything like that. So give me a week and then we can chat some more.
All right, take care. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Scott, supported by
Support.
Steve. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
Night,
you.
guys. Good job.
Hey, guys.
Bye.
Night.
Thank you.
Nice job. That worked pretty well.
We're gonna hang